What's up, everybody? I'm Chef Matty B, and we are here at TA Appliances and Barbecues in Kitchener, and we are back with another great recipe. Today, we got such a fun one. It's gonna be a nice, simple one. You can do this recipe with the kids, have a lot of fun doing it, and this time we get to show off using one of my favorite small appliances, which is the KitchenAid stand mixer. A classic for me for Valentine's Day is cupcakes, specifically cherry chip cupcakes, but I like to add a little something extra to enhance them. And then as much as I love buying the frosting in the container, there's nothing better than a nice homemade buttercream to go on top of these cupcakes. This one's gonna be a lot of fun and very festive for Valentine's Day, so you're gonna wanna make sure to follow along so you can do this one at home with your little ones. It's gonna be so much fun, so let's get into it. To start out with, we're gonna begin by just making the cake batter the way that it says on the box, and then I'm gonna be adding in some extras at the end, but we need to make that standard batter to begin with. So for this, we're gonna begin with 1 box of the cherry chip cake mix. To that, we're gonna add 1 cup of whole milk, along with 1/3 cup of canola oil, and then 3 eggs. And then we can take our bowl, and using the paddle attachment, we can mix all those ingredients together on medium-low speed. And with our batter all mixed up, now's the time that I can add my little extras. When I'm doing cherry chip cupcakes, I like to add some chopped maraschino cherries to it as well, just to give it that little extra juiciness, that pop of flavor. But if I were to add my cherries as is, then they're all just gonna sink to the bottom. So a little trick you can do is take your cherries or any fruit that you're adding to any cake batters and just sprinkle in a little bit of flour. Coating them in flour is gonna give something for that batter to bind to, and it's gonna keep them floating in the batter a little bit better instead of just sinking all the way to the bottom. And with our cherries dusted, we can add those into the batter. And I'm just gonna stir them in by hand because I don't wanna overwork the cake batter and have it get tough. And you can see, thanks to that flour, that there are still some cherry pieces kind of sitting on top there. That's exactly what we want. And now we can get cupcake liners into our muffin tray and get the batter distributed into it. And with our batter distributed, we're ready to go into the oven. So while our cupcakes are in the oven, we can get our buttercream mixed together. So we're gonna start out with a pound of butter that I let sit on the counter for a couple of hours to soften up. Then I just cut it into chunks. That's gonna make it easier to start mixing up. And for the butter, I'm gonna use the paddle attachment again. I'm gonna start with just the butter in the mixing bowl, and I'm gonna start whipping it on medium-high speed. Now that our butter is nice and smooth, I'm gonna switch over to the whisk attachment. And at this point, I'm also gonna start adding in my icing sugar into the buttercream. I also like adding a little bit of milk to my buttercream. This is just gonna lighten the texture up and help it whip a little bit better. Now that our frosting's nicely whipped, I like to add a little bit of vanilla extract. And since it's Valentine's Day, we're gonna be also adding some red food coloring to make it nice and pink. And this is just looking so awesome. So now I'm gonna put it in the fridge so it can set up a little bit, and that'll make it a little easier to pipe. So now that the cupcakes are baked off and cooled and our icing has set a little bit in the fridge, it's time for the fun part, and that's the decorating. So for this one, we're gonna be doing something a little bit unique, and instead of piping the icing directly on top of the cupcakes, we're actually gonna be piping it onto a tray lined with parchment paper. And since it's Valentine's Day, I'm just gonna do a little heart pattern, and then you take your cupcakes and invert them onto that, and then put that into the freezer until it stiffens up. That way you can flip it over, peel that parchment paper off, and you have this beautiful little graphic. And then when you go to serve them, it's just like a little cupcake pull apart, where you get to grab cupcake and pull it out of the whole pattern. You got the icing on top. It's gonna be delicious and so much fun. So let's get to it. So I got my sheet pan here lined with parchment paper, and I can get my piping bag filled up with this beautiful pink icing, which is looking fantastic. And then I'm just kind of gonna eyeball how big I think a heart would be to cover like 6-ish cupcakes. I think that should probably be about a good size. So I'm gonna just get it all filled in with more icing. And then just to make sure that there's no holes, I'm just gonna go over the pattern again, but the other direction. And this can be a great way of getting your kids involved in the kitchen as well, because you can do all sorts of different designs, smiley faces, maybe do a shamrock for St. Patrick's Day. There's tons of different options, and it's just a lot of fun to do this. But now that our heart's been drawn out, we can get our cupcakes and invert them on top of the icing. And now this can go into the freezer to make sure that icing sets up super nice. That way it's not gonna melt into the cupcakes when we flip it over. So now that our cupcakes have been in the freezer for a little bit, that icing's feeling nice and firm. So now I'm gonna try tipping it over onto the plate and we'll see how this goes. That actually turned out so good. I kind of really like that. But now I'm gonna top it with a little bit of red sugar just to add a little bit more color to it. And then we can start pulling apart and seeing how they taste. Now this is honestly just too much fun, but it's time to dive in and see how they taste. And half the fun is pulling them apart. Cause look at that. That's like the perfect little cupcake there. All right, and let's dig in. They're so tasty. There's really no going wrong when it comes to using a cake mix like this, and adding in those maraschino cherries just enhances the cupcakes that much more. That buttercream is super sweet, nice and fluffy. It's so much fun, it's so easy to do, especially when you're using a KitchenAid stand mixer. It's a great activity to get the kids involved in the kitchen, just so much fun for the holidays. Now, I had so much fun getting to do this. I hope that you guys try it out at home as well and have just as much fun as I did. And if you're enjoying these types of videos, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this in the future. Also, leave down in the comments section if you have any recipes you want to see me try, and maybe I'll give it a go in a future video. But that's all I have for now, so we'll see you guys next time.